Hello, everyone. Welcome to our session today. Often law firms and corporate legal teams have to deal with multiple countries and multiple legal system and multiple languages. So today we will discuss how we can support you effectively manage multilingual content in the legal process. We are Park IP. We localize. My name is Ru Wang Jackson. I'm a business development director within our European team in London. I'm also the team lead for our Asia team. I'm a qualified solicitor in China and have been working in the legal industry, serving global clients for the last 18 years. Kenji, over to you.
Yes, thank you, Lou. This is Kenji Ozawa of Park IP Division in Tokyo office. I'm in this industry for 25 years and we localized for 3.5 years now. My current focus is to develop IP and legal requirements in Japan and the Asian market. I'm passing it over to Jonathan.
Thanks, Kenji. Hello, everyone. Jonathan Trotman. I'm the Director of Data Strategy and Solutions at Park IP. My function is to kind of support our clients and our sales teams with workflows and processes. I've been with the company for 8.5 years and primarily have worked in kind of the Park IP division and in the legal space.
Perfect. Jonathan, since you have the most experience within our organization, can you give an overview of WeLocalize and Park IP?
Absolutely, happy to do that. So Park IP, as kind of Ru led off, is the legal division of WeLocalize. So we're a rather large company. You can see up here some of the stats related to our 2020 performance. And we are processing about 2.1 billion words annually. We're one of the 5 largest LSPs in the world. And you can see here that we really take our quality very seriously. We've maintained 5 ISO certifications, including information security. And we are the foundation of our kind of, the foundational elements of what we do really are kind of outlined there on the bottom and around our 4 pillars. And that's customer success, customer service, global teamwork, innovation, and quality. Those really kind of stem across everything that we do. And I hope those kind of come across when we talk a little bit about the legal specifics today.
Mm-hmm.
As we look closer, specifically at the legal business, these are the 4 key areas that we mainly get involved. Across to the left here, you see things that are really geared towards intellectual property practitioners, so your prosecution and your filing, looking at protecting your IP assets as you're going abroad. And then across to the right, 2 more areas that we feel are really key that have a lot of language needs, kind of the cross-border litigation and then your general corporate legal communications, right? So we're thinking about your risk departments, your compliance departments, employment and labor, anywhere where you have this necessity to kind of go from one language into another and ensure readability and access to your teams. So this is where we really get involved, and these are the kind of avenues that we support. We're going to dig in a little bit on each one and touch on each little topic a little bit today. I'm going to turn it back over to Ru to kind of kick us off.
Okay, so now I'm going to stop sharing my screen so we can see each other's face properly. Okay, so Jonathan and Kenji, a lot of my clients are legal professionals. They often ask me one question: how do we identify and select the best language resources when we deal with multilingual legal content? Any thoughts here?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it's really the foundational element, right? It's how do you get it done, and who are the people that are doing that translation, right? So at WeLocalize, we have a kind of rather large in-house resourcing team that are regularly recruiting and doing ongoing training and performance management of our linguists. But more importantly, there are kind of 3 foundational things that we're looking for, in particular with legal being a specialized service. And those 3 areas are linguistic, technical and scientific, and really legal specific. So just quickly, from a linguistic standpoint, what we're looking for are translators that have native level proficiency in the target language, right? From a technical and scientific standpoint, we're really looking for anybody with kind of an advanced training or education within that kind of technical or scientific field or specialty. And then, of course, fully versed in kind of the legal industry and terminology, right? Understanding the nuance of the legal language, and kind of more importantly, what that looks like in the target language, right? It's one thing to understand it in English, but what does that read, and does it kind of conform to the local practices?
So how many, let's say, how many years of experience do your linguist must have? Do you have a requirement there?
Yeah, so we're asking for a minimum of 4 years, right? So we don't want to kind of cancel anybody out. We kind of have said in the past that 4 years is really the point where we see that they've kind of gained the knowledge and the experience necessary to execute on these types of translations.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, actually, I do have a, sort of a related question to Jonathan. This is kind of a wider questions, but during the early stage of sales cycle, I'm often asked, what is our differentiator and value of WeLocalize compared to other, language service providers? And since you have already mentioned about the selecting best, language resources, is there any other, differentiator that you can mention, such as, for example, like what kind of method do we use in order to maintain our linguistic quality?
So we have a pretty rigid production process, right? And that's kind of overseen by our ISO certification. So through that process, we're kind of not only the execution and the production of the translation is very well managed through a technology-based system, but we're also then regularly testing and kind of conducting performance management of our linguists. So on the upfront side, in terms of on a per project basis, Kenzie, what we're looking at is just executing through that workflow, right? The checks and balances regularly built in, our loop back step where we put the proofreader and translate it together. But that's only one component of it, right? That ongoing piece really comes down to that regular testing of our linguists, doing sampling of kind of a corpus of work for a given client, for a given language, to really kind of understand where the trends are, where we might need to improve, and then of course where we might need to recruit new resources. But this is something that we're regularly managing.
Right. Is it, I believe we do have our internal organization called RRB, Institutional Review Board, right?
Oh yeah.
Does it related to, what you just mentioned, or?
Yeah, a little bit. So it's actually, you kind of touched on a little bit of a sore spot, right? IRB is one of those things that we look at, and we don't want to be in an IRB, but we understand that translation is a human business, right? At the end of the day, it's a human taking words from one language into another, and it's even more nuanced than that, right? Because there are preferential terminology. Right. So our IRB, or our internal review board, is the structure by which we kind of receive that feedback and do root cause analysis. And that goes from kind of your critical substantive errors to your preferential language, right? And so through that process, we start to understand what our clients' linguistic needs are, what their preferences are, and then really start to build out glossaries and really partner, right? I think when you ask about differentiators, what we do, I think, best is partner with our clients, right? We are here, we understand that we're providing a service, but we want to provide a service that is relevant to them, that is particular to their business. So we really try to get ingrained with their processes.
I have a broader question here. I mean, from your experience, what are the main challenges that our clients, the legal professionals, often have when they deal with the multilingual content? I mean, I could think about, they often say quality, right? Quality assurance. That's probably the most thing they mentioned.
Right.
And also turnaround time, right? They're saying, we need it urgently. How can you make sure you can deliver that on time? And transparency, right? How you would charge the client, and what are the challenges you see from your experience here?
Well, I would say that really run parallel to what you just outlined, Rick, right? I mean, those three things are kind of critical, right? So quality kind of is both the quality of the output, but really you're also looking at language harmonization, right? You are looking at using the same terms in the same way across multiple jurisdictions. So quality, I think, has two pieces. Really, where one of the pain points we are often seeing is kind of around the visibility. And then with visibility comes not only tracking of process, but spend, right? Many of our corporate clients are managing multiple outside law firms who may have their own processes and may be doing their own thing. And in those situations, from the kind of the corporate buyer standpoint, they really lack that control, right? And so one of the things that we have done is built not only your manual processes, so to speak, so your traditional email workflows, but a huge tech stack from our portal to kind of our client integrations to really facilitate that, right? And through all of that, we can facilitate reporting and benchmarking and measuring KPIs and SLAs, really providing the metrics that kind of give the clarity, right? They're data points, but again, we look to partner and bring that clarity into kind of the client's process and what they can do.
Yeah, thanks. Kenji, do you have more questions?
Sure. It's related to more like a technical perspective. We've been using, CAD tool like there's a multiple CAD tool in the industry, and we used to using leverage with past translation by using translation memories. And nowadays, I believe, machine translation has been one of the big topic not necessarily in Japan, but especially, when I talking to a client in Japan and Asia, it's been for a while. Because in general, optimizing, MT for Asian language is a little harder than European languages, right? And but I believe often ask, from my, prospect and customer if we are be able to utilize machine translation for IP and legal translation for Asian languages. And because, it's because, customers are looking for how to minimize their cost and, turnaround time by using MT. That's their target, right?
Yeah.
So,
absolutely.
Jonathan, I do have one question. Do you have any latest information about the, MT usage for Asian languages?
Yep. So I think, as usual, as Lisa, you two are used to hearing from me, it's not a very straightforward answer, right? It's kind of a yes and a no, right? So MTP, or machine translation post editing, has come a long way, right? I think if we all know, about 5-10 years ago, machine translation was still kind of coming along and we were learning. And I think particularly in the IP space, many people wouldn't let an MT engine anywhere near a patent, right? I think we're at a point with MT, with AI, with Neural MT, that we have really developed a refined process that has allowed us to explore leveraging it for the Asian languages. And to your point, it really does cut down that turnaround time, right? So it is slightly more cost effective to do that, both from a time and actual dollars perspective. But it is evolving to a point where we are seeing more and more leverage and use out of that. We expect that to continue as time goes on and as the technology advances and as we learn more. It's never going to be perfect, right? That's the purpose of that post-editing step, but it's getting us closer and closer. And through that, we're able to drive more and more efficiencies.
I see.
But I would be interested. I mean, you asked that question, Kenji. Is that something that you're really hearing out in the market, kind of that knowledge and that building around that MCP process?
I've been hearing a lot of a comment from the client that our client themselves, they already implemented MT by themselves, and that they like to ask us for post-editing part.
Mm.
Those kind of our communication is often happen between myself and Japanese client. So that could be some other future option that we may think about.
Yeah. It's just interesting because it's one of those things when you think about MCP that, again, years back, we all being in the space would have known about it, but our clients really wouldn't have been talking about it. So it's interesting to hear that knowledge has expanded really out into the buyer space.
Right.
Yeah, I think in Europe though, people are still very cautious about it by using MT for patent specific translation, and they're very interested to know what kind of technology we have, but then they're still quite reluctant to really step into the MT world at the moment anyway. But I think this is the trend. Maybe another 5 years we'll have a different story, but at the moment, yeah, it's just that everybody's interested in it, but not really utilizing it that much. Okay. Last question I've got is a quick question. So, JT and Kenji, do we have the in-person interpreting services for litigation for court use? Is that something we also provide?
Yeah, absolutely. We can staff
languages, any specific language, or all types of languages?
We can support any of the 250 plus languages that we currently translate into or out of, right? And we can provide kind of that on site. We also can provide virtual interpretation services, both kind of the video as well as over the phone. So we're kind of fully staffed, right? So we're a little bit more than just kind of taking words on paper from one into another, right? There are additional services that we can provide from the legal space, but then even from the broader kind of We Localize company, right? And the We Localize family. That is the kind of the nice thing about the position I think we're in, being a part of this big family. We really can leverage and bring the full weight and technology that we have to bear to execute particularly in the legal space, which is kind of an underserved space in some ways when we think about kind of the language area, right? Maybe not so much in the patents, but when we kind of go across to that other side and we think about litigation, and in particular your internal corporate communications, there really is a need, I think, there to drive more efficiencies, better usage. And so I think that's where we are seeing the most growth.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, thank you, Kenji. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, everybody. And this is the end of our session. And I hope you enjoy our discussion. And if you have any questions, I'm going to share my screen again. And these are our contact details. Please feel free to contact us. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.